I think we are a go. Hello, everybody. We are back. I apologize. Technical difficulties. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but the man, of course, and I apologize, man. I mean, we were speaking, finishing up. Well, actually, we were still talking about this book right here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, long story short, Brody teams up with Blair, the archaeologist, Celtic princess,
Right.
because little Nora gets kidnapped. And I think I created a great henchwoman character. I thought of Bridget Nielsen, Stye's
Yeah.
ex-wife, that big, tall, leggy Swedish
Oh
girl.
yeah. Big
And
girl.
she's gorgeous, but she's a
Right.
total psychopath. So they kidnap poor little Nora. Then she meets the other lost boys. One guy can control animals and birds and insects. Another one can see in the future, like 5 minutes ahead. Another one can kind of get in your head and influence you, etc. So it all culminates in a scene where they have to attack the castle where Heinrich Gant lives, right? And
Right.
they have to do actual kind of a magical battle. And there's one scene that I put in there where it kind of goes, well, the kids are kind of fantasy, but you know, King and Coons used it for science fiction too. They like Firestarter was a kid with powers that the bad guys wanted to get. So when Nora escapes from the orphanage where the kids are, she's in an alley. She meets Mrs. Doolittle, and she's this old like bag lady, and she has this fox stole on her thing, and a cat runs by. The fox comes to life and goes to chase the cat. So anyway, it turns out that Miss Doolittle is, a lot more than she appears to, and she introduces to this old couple that look like they stepped out of the 1800s or earlier, driving an old Rolls Royce and everything. And they're the Flamels. They're the original old alchemists, right?
Right.
So Blair and Brody and Miss Doolittle, they get to the castle right when he's trying to do this chemical modern science working, right? And I don't want to spoil the end, but it really, well, there's a mirror involved, and it's a portal to this other dimension, right? And bad things happen to Mr. Gant when he tries to enter the mirror. I'll leave it at that. But I think it could also, I never envisioned it could be for young readers, teenagers, but I think it really could because they can relate to the kids.
Oh
So
yeah.
that,
I
so
mean,
you got two different kinds of thrillers. Now the third one is Solomon's Key, the CODIS project.
yes. I'm gonna bring the image up right quick.
Well, this one, I kind of rode Dan Brown's coattails because if you remember when he finished, he did Angels and Demons first, then the Da Vinci Code. People thought Angels was a sequel, but no, it was a paperback that they never even put out as a hardcover. But it took him 5 years to come up with the next one, right? So I jumped on the bandwagon with it and I got really lucky. The first version I put out got optioned for film by Bill Townsend Jr. Now you remember the old game shows? It was always a Gibson Townsend production.
Yeah.
Well, Bill Jr. is his son, and he was head of CBS
Oh
programming.
man.
Then he created a film studio called Level One Entertainment. He did the X-Men. He did, remember that Will Smith remake of the Wild Wild West that he did?
Oh yeah.
So he was a big time producer. I was driving down the road and I got a call. And this guy says, "Hey, this is John from William Morris Talent Agency." I ran off the road and just stopped. So, yeah, I can't tell you who, but somebody's interested wants to know if you've already optioned your book for film. And I'm like, just no. So it was so easy to get an agent that way because when you got something to bring to the table, you
Yeah.
know, I had about them competing. I picked the wrong one, unfortunately, but it got published in about 20 countries because one picked it up. They saw a published marketplace, it lists the sales, the deals,
Yeah.
and pieces of it. So it got published everywhere from Spain to France to
Wow.
Canada to even Macedonia and Bulgaria. And the funny thing is, when I got the Romanian version, I picked it up and I could understand most of it. And I'm like, what the hell? So I
Wow.
called the agent in Budapest and she laughed and said, well, we were occupied by the Romans for years, right? So what are the Romance languages? Spanish, French, and Italian, right? All based on Latin. So that's
Right.
why if you speak Spanish and read it, you can read some of the verbs, the nouns, and the
Oh
pronouns
man.
the same. But I'm like, wow. But I did ask because I'd always heard a rumor that Vlad the Impaler,
Yeah.
that Bram Stoker was a national hero in Romania. I said, is it true that there's like pictures of him on the wall in public schools? He said, yes, he was a hero. He saved Romania from being taken over by the Ottoman Turks. He was nasty. He put them on spikes in the road and they turned
Yeah.
around and went home. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. So she was a character, I remember. She was always, you could tell she was chain smoking on the phone. And I said, what do you smoke? She says, Virginia Slims, darling, Virginia Slims. And then the agent I got, this is a great quote for the film, was this old lady, and she was Hungarian. And I said, oh, like the Gabor sisters, Eva and Jaja? She goes, oh, please, darling, I'm a vertical Hungarian, not a horizontal Hungarian.
Bro, that's good right there, man.
That's a good quote, right? Anyway, so getting back to the book, I wanted to go a little further than Dan Brown did, and he kind of whitewashed a lot of the stuff. I mean, it was driving me nuts because he kept hinting that the girl's grandfather or father participated in some sort of a cult ritual, right? He kept in the film they showed little flashbacks, but he just kept hinting at it and hinting at it and hinting at it. And what it actually was called Heros Gamos. And there's a division of magic called sex magic. And it's the idea that when you have an orgasm, and the French call it la petite mort, right? Little death.
Yeah.
You're totally disconnected from you, your ego, the universe, everything.
Yeah.
Open up a gateway to an altered consciousness, right? So, I mean, that's what he kept hinting at. And I said, oh, come on. I guess he thought maybe it was a little bit too risque for the general public. Yeah. So anyway, my story, it's a Vatican conspiracy thriller. The protagonist is a Secret Service agent, but for the Italian government. Okay, they have their own Secret Service. The other protagonist is Josie Schulman, who is a Mossad agent. Okay, and her grandfather works at the University of Chicago, and he's an expert on esoteric and ancient writings and religion. And he's in the religious, what do they call it? The religious department at Chicago University, right?
Yeah.
Now, our hero, his uncle is also an expert, and he's in Italy, right? So the book has tons of codes in it. And I had some reviewers say they don't work. They work. I spent hours and hours making sure they worked, but they're not easy, Yeah. And I kind of threw that in there as part of a challenge for the reader because people love that and Dan Brown. Remember when he was promoting it, he put the website up with all these clues and puzzles, So the premise is that the Vatican, and he thinks that it's the Templars or the Freemasons that's trying to destroy the Vatican and the Pope, right?
Right.
But actually, it turns out to be this guy who's head of the Eschatology Institute. And I thought that kind of rhymed with Scientology.
Oh, yeah.
Get my drift, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they're staging these terrorist attacks in Rome and all this stuff. And at first, they don't see through the pattern. But eventually, he figures out it's really this guy who's staging this, and he wants to kill the Pope and destroy the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And just because, I guess you'd say, right? So full of a lot of intrigue. In the opening, you're at the Temple Mount, and there's a cleric and a little, remember the little Weasley guy in the Mummy movies, that was with Brendan Fraser, and he's like,
oh, yeah, yeah.
Kind of like a Joe Pesci. Yeah. So this little guy, and they go and they get into this secret chamber underneath of it, right? And I really did a good job with that because it's dark and all this stuff. And then they find this room and there's a mobile, and he points a laser pointer at it, and it bounces off this blackness.
Yeah.
And he goes up to it and he finds out it's bronze. And he's
Oh
thinking,
no.
because it said something about, I wrote it in Latin, something about, I can't remember the Latin word for mirror and doorway, right? So
Right.
the little guy kind of kicks it and it starts to move. So what it is, it's a swiveling wall. And they go in and then they find these tombs. And the one marked Joshua, Jesus, is empty. All right. There's one for, and the one for Mary, the Virgin, is empty. But he comes to this other one and he goes, there's no markings on it, you know? So he
Yeah.
gets the little weasel to help him slide it off. And there's this desiccated, emaciated corpse. And it has a pointed chin and it has devil horns. And on its finger is the ring. Because remember
Yeah.
the legend that King Solomon
Yeah.
had this magic ring given to him by Michael or Gabriel, and he got Asmodeus and Beelzebub and all these demons
Oh
to
yeah.
build the temple, right? And there's even a thing in there about this worm that cut the stone perfectly, a shamir. You know, it's great mythos, you know.
Yeah.
But he kind of pieces that together. But then some terrorists upstairs sets off this bomb, and they've got to beat feet and get out of there before they get killed, right? So that's kind of the opening of it, you know. So it's really deep with a lot of, kind of like Dan Brown did. My point is that the real religion, because, you know, for years, goddesses were the religion, right? And then we got the Jado-Christian thing that became total patriarchal. And they made Lilith a demon. And, you know, there's a famous quote. I know Crowley said it too, but demons and ugly rituals are something the other guy's religion does, right? His gods become demons. His rituals are, you know, because if you're not Catholic and you see all this pomp and circumstance, you're like, what the heck is all this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Robes and the holy water and everything. And you're
Saints,
eating.
all the different statues, and man, I hear
Yeah,
you.
and I mean, I asked a family friend priest one time. I said, well, isn't communion kind of like a ritual? You're eating the body and blood of Jesus, you know,
No.
and you know, if I was Jesus, would you want to see people you crucified around their neck or a cross? I mean, that would be the worst day in your life. Why
I
would you want?
know. I was just there. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, why would you want to do that? So that's kind of the brunt of it. And then there's a terrorist whose code name is Bast, which is the ancient Egyptian cat god that they always
Yeah.
have. And he ends up doing battle with her too. But he uses his uncle to help decode these messages, right? And stuff, because some are in hieroglyphs, et cetera, et cetera. And then Josie's grandfather back at the Chicago University has been working on it and communicating with Professor Giovanni in Italy about all this stuff, right? And I also throw in a grimoire called the Black Rose Notebook. And I kind of stole a page from Lovecraft with that. And Lovecraft stole it from Chambers. There was an old horror book called The King in Yellow. You've ever heard of that?
No, I've never heard of that. No.
The premise has been used over and over. If you read this book, you'll either go mad or be devoured by demons or die, right? And of course,
Man.
Lovecraft stole that with the Necronomicon, right?
Right.
And now people, oh God, they just use that over and over and over again in horror movies, right? But in the Black Rose Notebook, it's the same thing. And what I introduced was that there was a secret bladder in the binding, right? And it contained a needle. And and so when you opened the book and you held it, you got injected.
Yeah.
And I forget the chemical compound, but I looked it up, and it was there's a chemical that toads actually produce that's a hallucinogenic, right?
Yeah.
And I don't care. Your listeners either adults or not. But the old adage of witches flying around on a broom, an eye of newt, and toads and all that. Well, the witches were herbalists, right? They knew about natural chemicals and all this. What they did, and it's been documented, but nobody ever wants to talk about it, is they made a bomb, a salve, with this hallucinogenic material, and they used different hallucinogens. They coated the broomstick for it because if you ingest that just orally, nothing. But if it enters through a membrane in your body, you'll get a trip, right?
Right.
And so if they're riding the broomstick, you can kind of make 2 and 2 equal 4. Their labia, their vagina is absorbing the hallucinogen. So they didn't really go flying around across the moon. They just went on trips, you know.
Yeah.
But there's this writer called Robert Anton Wilson, and he wrote a book called Cosmic Trigger. And he's just funny in how he used to write the letters column for Playboy, which were hilarious sometimes. One guy said he coated his member in tuna fish and put it in a fish tank, and all this crazy stuff. But he was a great writer, and this Cosmic Trigger book but he was like a real anarchist. In Chicago in the '60s, he was out there getting beat up by the Chicago.
The real deal.
Yeah. And he was very intelligent and a lot of good, look him up on YouTube sometime. He's just hilarious too. But he said that, where was it going with this? I totally forgot.
Oh, shoot, man. I know we were talking about the book itself, but I mean, as far as the story, I mean, it was going
to oh crap, I can't remember. It would come back to me. Anyway, yeah, there's so I love horror. I love thrillers, but I like to do the research,
Oh yeah.
And when I was a kid, think about 15, we went in a bookstore and I saw this book on the shelf called Autobiography of a Yogi, right?
Right.
And I read it and I said, this stuff makes a lot more sense than what the damn priests and nuns are telling me, I don't, and he explained that, no, you don't come back as a worm or a bird or your dog, it's a soul trip, Of course, I have a problem with reincarnation because it's so ethnocentric, I mean, you go to one of these past life and therapy sessions, and it's the same as the contaminated with the kids over the satanic panic,
Yeah.
If you come in and you notice when everybody remembers, they were never a scullery maid or a garbage collector, right? Or a blacksmith. They were, handmaiden to the queen or the high priestess, or they were,
somebody
Alexander page or somebody, And then, so you go back again. So let's pick off where we left off. It's just going to keep going and going and going. Because if I take you back and I say, okay, now you're in the womb, what do you see? Yeah. And I keep pressing you to see something,
Fair enough. So you see something then.
Make something up. So that's, I just can't, I'm into all this stuff, but, I looked it up and I love Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist that kind of took over. And I looked up the facts, and I mean, the Milky Way, there are trillions of possible solar systems in the universe, and there are billions of galaxies, and we just sit here and think, well, Jesus came here just for us, and when I die, I'm going to come back and be right here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Well, why would you come back here?
I know you can be anywhere in the world, man.
Yeah, would you want to come back here even? I don't think so. Unless I could come back, it's kind of like, I tried to look it up one time. There's that old trope from, Lovecraft was really, and I laugh at that too, that people, when his works, people were going to libraries and they wanted to check out the Necronomicon, and there's no such thing, and then these people said, well, I think he was a member of some secret society and he had all this. He was a writer. He's a damn writer. And I looked it up the other day. I'm going to do this talk on it. The occult books he had in his library were 3. And most of everything he put in his novels was right out of the Encyclopedia Britannica. He never read any of those occult books. He was a total scientific, materialistic person, But he had a great imagination. He knew how to scare people. Let me ask you about that. I asked some of the other authors and filmmakers. His theory was that he kind of described Shiflu as this octopusal thing, But in the stories, you never really see the monster. You don't see the evil. And his theory was that it's the turning of the doorknob, the scratching on the other side of the door, the howling in the night, etc. That's really scary. And if you
Right.
open the door and the monster's there, it's kind of over. So that's why I'm kind of like a traditionalist with horror. I just don't really like you to. If it's a person, yeah. But I guess that's why I don't like slasher movies as much, because there's this monster and he's going to chase her or him. I mean, I've watched them all, but some of the streaming stuff I watched lately I'm really addicted to that. Like you said, I watched The House of Usher. That was excellent.
Wow.
And did you see the one called Bodies?
Yes, I have.
That
Yes.
where they found the body in the alleyway with the old 1880s detective from Scotland Yard and then the new detective. And that was really good show. And then I started watching Bates Motel. And I'm like, we just went through all 5 seasons of that. That was just, and I wondered where they were going to go, from the movie or before it or whatever, but they kind of just went on their own path and it really worked.
Oh yeah, it was its own storyline. I mean,
But it's kind of funny when you think the original slasher movie was Psycho with the shower scene, But Hitchcock spent 3 weeks shooting that scene and, editing it together frame by frame. And nowadays it's just blood, blood,
Yeah.
But
No, yeah.
I still like, my favorite Jack the Ripper movie was one called Decree something. It had Christopher Plummer as Sherlock and James Mason as Watson. And it was their theory was that Prince Eddie had knocked up a whore in Whitechapel and she had a baby and the family wanted to quash it because they didn't want a whore's child that had to be heir to the throne.
Online.
So that's the reason they killed off these other prostitutes because they all knew the one that was. And in the movie, he finally finds her and she's in an asylum and they've locked her up and she's, but she starts to remember and she tells Holmes what really happened, Wow. But of course, the Masons kind of just, well, there's that famous scene where in the alleyway and it says the Jews will know no shame. And then the chief superintendent has them erase it, And I looked it up. That's true. So I always wanted to go to London and do the Ripper Walk. You go to the Three Bellows Tavern and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm more of a traditionalist. I like. Well, they're coming back though. I mean, that Lovecraft.
It has to. I mean, it seems like everything just goes full circle, and I'm waiting for that too because those are the ones that actually have a storyline. Those are the ones that actually open up and give you the dialogue, give you structure. Like you said. I mean, a lot of the slasher films now is just like 10 minutes of an intro, and then the rest is the lady
Chase.
running away and trying to get away, and there's nothing.
Well, that's the only problem I have interviewing these young filmmakers. They only really know the slasher films, and that's what they think they got to make, It's been done. I told the one guy, I said, why don't you do like Steven Spielberg? You're young enough. He went on the Paramount lot for, I think it was a year without being paid. And the guards just saw him every day. So they let him go through. And then finally someday said, who's this kid? And they found out he wasn't on the payroll, but he was very talented. And he was fetching donuts, anything he could just to get in the movie business, And it worked out pretty darn well for him, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean the thing now, everybody keeps talking about these theaters not getting numbers, and a lot of them opening up to indie filmmakers. And I'm thinking, well, man, this is the opportunity for them to actually create something that people are going to go watch.
I was surprised this guy interviewed the other day. He only wrote the script, but it was directed well and pretty well. It was kind of I think it was called Making of the Murder, and and it hasn't been released yet, but I saw the trailers. It looked really good. It was shot well. A lot of these independent movies, the lighting is terrible and the acting's not so good either.
No,
it takes money to make a real movie. I mean, look at Romero did it with Night of the Living Dead, but he had the concept and the talent, and it was black and white. It was easier to shoot that way. And the actors were pretty damn good in it, really. I met the blonde in the opening scene in the graveyard. She was at a horror convention too. So she's still doing. She had that one little claim to fame. Oh, and the interesting one I met was the adult little boy that was in the original Omen.
Oh man, okay.
Peck tried to kill. Yeah, I've been worked on his name here. Harvey Stephan. Yeah, and he was there signing stuff. But I asked him because I remember the end scene. They're at the cemetery because Gregory Peck has died, right? And they don't show you that it's going to be William Holden, but they say it's the president, you know. And the little boy just turns and makes his face at the camera. Do you know why? Well, the director, was it Richard Donner, I think?
Right.
Wanted to get that look on him. So all day long, he just teased him and, you know, and said, you know, Harvey. So they didn't have the sound. So he went, Harvey, and the little kid turned around and just glared at him. But he did that all day to get that one fight. And that was the final shot of the movie.
Oh man, that's interesting, man.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I just, you know, if I was younger, I'd still want to go to Hollywood and make movies. Because you think about it, if you and I went, well, you're young enough, but 20, 30 years later, everybody's a millionaire. Even if they just make skin flicks or grade B slasher movies, or, you know, Corman. Oh, but he was talented, you know. I mean, he Coppola, Bogdanovich, everybody, and taught them how to make a movie fast. You know, I think he did Little Shop of Horrors in like 5 days or 3 days, something like that. But I mean, the crew must have just been take it down, move it, take it down, move it, take it down, move it. Yeah.
Yeah, but, because a lot of the actors, every time when I'm out there at conventions and I get to talk to these guys, or men or women, I always ask them like, man, how many takes? And they're like, one. Like they were on the budget. They were like, we got so many days, so many hours today. Like, well, let's just keep going. Boom, boom, boom.
Right. Yeah.
And for me, that kind of makes.
It's like when Coppola did Apocalypse Now with Brando.
Yeah.
He didn't read the book. He didn't know the script. So he would just let Brando improvise and just keep the cameras rolling and then edit it later. But Brando was so good, it was better than what was in the script.
Yeah.
You know? But they're in the middle of the goddamn jungle, and he's like, I got to get this done. And in the day, I got to listen to Brando just extemporaneously make up dialogue, you know?
Yeah.
What a waste. He was really
happy accidents, man, but a lot of times it pays off, though. They do great.
Oh, yeah, I think so. So, anyway, I guess that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, the 3 books are all thrillers, but from what I told you, they're all different. You know, one is a noir thriller with the occult in the end, and the other one's that's Predator, right?
Yeah.
And they're finishing up on the audiobook on that now. I found a really good guy, and he's kind of new at it, but you just have a little problem with the technical part. But it was funny. He had me on ACH. You go through and you listen to it, and then as you're supposed to make a note if you mispronounce something or something. And I only came up with about 12 things, and they were hard things because some of it was Latin, or like it's called Goetia, which is the black magic book for demons, you know. And he totally blew that out of the water. But the one I thought was funny was, Crowley's Thelema. He said Thelma. So I said,
oh, man.
Thelma? What are you talking about here?
Yeah.
But he's doing a really good job because I got these guys, and Chance's buddy's a Brooklyn Jewish guy. He talks like that, you know, so I had to do all that stuff.
Nice.
And I'm having him put music. He didn't want to, but I said, no, you got to put some music, you know. I said, since it's noir, I want like a Mickey Spillane, breathy singers, you know, like you'd play as they're walking down the alleyway with the, you know, the steam and the thing like that. And then the chase scene, I had him put chase music and everything. So I don't know. I'd appreciate if you, they're free on Kindle Unlimited. You know, I don't get much money for it. But
yeah, man, I was gonna say, because I'm still a fan of audio, man. I mean, when it comes to audiobooks,
Yeah,
Still
well,
got
I'll
it.
let you know when it comes out.
Yeah.
It should be 11 hours, but it's just my son he works for the Getty in L.A. and he used to have like a 2-hour commute each way, and he
Oh
went through
man.
every audio CD. I said, "How the hell could you commute that far, especially in bumper to bumper L.A. traffic?" Oh my God!
No,
But
yeah, but you see, that's kind of where it makes sense because I would definitely listen to that stuff on the, while I'm at work, walking, doing what I got to do, or on the ride home. It's like makes
sure.
sense. Radio, man.
Well,
So
I did too. Like if you're taking a road trip and it's at
yeah.
night and you put something a little spooky on, you just
Oh yeah.
it's just great. To this day, well, in Texas, anybody can carry a gun, right? But
Oh yeah. We
not
got
gonna.
it.
I don't carry it anymore. I used to. And I still got my creds. Kind of get you out of tickets everywhere but Louisville. I'm never going back there. But if I go on a road trip, I've just seen too many horror movies. Road trips gone bad. I'm going to bring a gun.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm like that. I live here in San Antonio, man. So wherever I go, I'm packing. I have to. I got my permit. It's just
Yeah, well, you don't really need it anymore, but
no,
it's
no,
kind
not
of
here.
it's good. Well, it's good though if you get pulled over and you got a piece, you can hand
Yeah,
them your license and that, and they'll say, "Are you carrying this?" Yes, sir. I'm not
safe
touching you.
paperwork. You know.
Yeah, I know. It's like when I joined the State Department, I had this friend. He was Korean. And he was such a wimp. When he went to the academy, they called him Jimmy Chan Band-Aid because he would carry
Oh
band-aid.
damn, dude.
He was
Dude.
like 28 years old and he complained about his hemorrhoids and everything. But we went to dinner when he got hired with his wife. And I said, well, let me give you a hypothetical, Jimmy. Let's say you're driving, you just got off work, you still got your gun and everything, and you get pulled over. What do you do? So, oh, I get out and say, I got a gun. His wife took her purse and just clubbed him and
Oh
said,
man.
I said, yeah, well, that'll get you killed, Jimmy.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's when people start drawing. So
Oh, yeah, it was funny. Well, they wanted him to work in the visa fraud section because there was so much fraud out of Korea.
yeah.
And he's native Korean speaker, right? So they took him up to the undersecretary for security and was introducing to Jimmy. And Jimmy goes, excuse me, but this sounds very dangerous. I don't think it's for Jimmy. And they looked at each other like, oh, well, how much for that? I mean, it was back in Washington, not in Seoul, where it'd be a danger.
I'm gonna have to use that one at work. I'm gonna say I don't think this is for Mario. Too much work.
Yeah,
Too much
I
work.
just don't think I can do this. This is just too much. Oh, I got to get, maybe we can get a beer sometime. I got tons of war stories I could tell you about those days. It's just funny.
No, man, for sure. Dude, we'll definitely bring you back on here, man. We'll set it up, knock it out. I mean, there's still plenty to talk about. I mean, the books, as far as the you being an author and being able to publish some of this stuff, man. I mean, it's great.
Mhm.
I mean, love to have you back on here and talk, man. Talk to more.
Yeah.
We'll pick a couple
Well,
topics and just shoot from there.
I appreciate it. And then we're done. We're not live anymore, right?
But we still are. It's a few minutes, bro. You want to go ahead and wrap it up?
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up. I think you
All right,
hit
no
my
problem,
bottom
man.
pretty
Everybody out there, of course, once again, author Richard D. Weber. Make sure to look him up. Publishes his work. Everybody out there, this is Spider Coming Soon Podcast. As always, till next time, follow up.